afternoon and welcome into the WBGU studio here in the Cooling Center. Holden Ruck from the Falcon Media Sports Network here for this week's episode of the Zig Zone, Falcon Media's flagship sports radio show where we take you through everything going on in the world of Bowling Green athletics. As I said, I'm Holden Ruck and I'm joined here by a pretty packed studio today, so I'll start all the way to my left, Tyler Cavalitz, fresh from Cleveland. How we doing, Tyler?
Doing good. Not too tired yet, surprisingly, after a long week up in Cleveland, but, really excited to talk about this MAC tournament action and discuss all BGSU athletics.
Holding up well, that's nice to hear. Lucas Kleinmeyer as well. Lucas, also fresh from Cleveland around the same time, I imagine. Were you guys together? Did you drive to? Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I am tired. I am really, really tired, but I am excited to be here because I haven't done the Zig Zone in a while, and we had a fantastic week, not just as an organization, but also covering MAC tournament and BGSU athletics as well. So I'm excited.
Yeah, definitely a lot of excitement the past couple of days for us. Next up, Andrew Smith. Also been a minute since he's been on here, but are you less tired than them?
Yeah, much less tired than them. I was not up until 3 a.m. driving back from Cleveland, so much more rested.
You sound thrilled. You sounded...
So I'm ready to go.
To my right in his usual spot, although it's been a mild hiatus for you too, Ben Korak. How you doing, Ben?
Pretty good. I don't know if this might be my first one of 2026. I could be misremembering, but feel pretty good. It's a word.
Yeah,
because sports.
Misremembering is a word, Lucas. Yeah, that's a
Nice word. Have you ever opened up a thesaurus by chance?
All right, I haven't heard that word in like a hot minute on the Evermo show, so I'm actually really proud there for that.
Last associate start already.
We're disgusted. Last but certainly not least, Nick Winfolds. Nick, how you doing?
I'm doing great. Back for number 2. We know I always come on one time a year, so
I think you've already exceeded your workout from last episode. Like, stop.
Good to be back. I will say, I think this is the longest drought that we've had with no Ben Korak on the Zazago. It should be a fun, I agree, yeah.
Oh, no doubt. And there's been plenty going on. I know Andrew's excited to talk about it. I know Ben's excited to talk about it. I think everybody is. Heck yeah. And we're going to go ahead and start with men's basketball because we talked about the Mid-American Conference tournament was the past few days. Men's basketball, not so fortunate in their results. Able to get in, get a good, decent seed, number 5, what I think was a pretty favorable matchup on paper with number 4 Toledo. Ultimately falling 77-76, bounced in the first round. Again, Tyler, take me through just the game first itself.
Yeah, it was really everything you could ask for out of a rivalry game at the MAC tournament. It was back and forth the entire way through. It was a very close contest. Neither team really ever had a true upper hand. Bowling Green leads by 1 at halftime. Toledo outscores them by 2 in the second half. These teams just knew each other so well coming into the game that it was never going to be a blowout one way or the other. I think the story for Bowling Green is going to be defined by foul trouble and how Todd Simon coached it versus how Todd Kowalczyk coached it. Javante Campbell picks up 3 early fouls. Todd Simon sits him down. He plays 2 personal fouls in that first half. He plays 5 minutes. 5 out of 20 minutes, he had Javante Campbell on the floor in the first half. Todd Simon was betting that he was going to keep him fresh because his view was that he wanted to keep him aggressive in the second half to let him play the way he does and not have him limited worrying about the fouls. Picks up in her quick one. Start the second half, ends up with 4 personal. He only plays 21 minutes. It's the second fewest out of the starters for BG. Toledo had a couple guys in foul trouble as well. Leroy Blayden Jr. and Austin Parks. Todd Kowalczyk decided to play those guys, and they did not foul out, and they were very, very useful for the Rockets. I asked Todd Kowalczyk about that afterwards, that he was kind of, how Javante being out of the game changed it and, his thoughts on that. And he basically said, we each had guys in foul trouble. I decided to play them. Todd Simon decided not to. You're going to have to ask him about that. So I think that's really the story of the game. Javante Campbell and, they were interesting foul calls. I don't think they were ones that are going to be called every game. It depends on the officiating crew that you have. Nonetheless, he picks them up. If he doesn't pick up those fouls, that's a completely different game. Bowling Green still stayed in it. They had an opportunity to win at the end. It was a big 3-pointer by Leroy Blayden Jr. Bowling Green ends up running down the floor with no timeouts left. Sam Towns passes it to Justin Thomas, gets to the rim, puts up a floater, rolls off front iron, rolls around the right of the rim, falls down, does not go in. You had the opportunity to win it right there. Possession before Javonte Campbell at the rim. Heavily contested shot, physical, no foul call, left short, doesn't go in. 2 high-quality looks. Bowling Green couldn't hit him, and that's the game.
And it feels like that, so close Penosagar is kind of, what we've seen a lot in the critical Bowling Green losses this year. Some late game sequences where things could have gone a different way against Kent State.
Well, and the most frustrating part about it is you look at the season series against Toledo. That first game you lose at Savage Arena. You outplayed Toledo for a minimum 35 out of 40 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, they only lose by 1 point yet in that one.
You can say that you could have outplayed them for 38 of those 40 minutes. Toledo outplayed you the 2 minutes down the stretch. They win that game. You dominate all 40 minutes at the Stroh Center. That one's not really a close game ever. Bowling Green jumped out on Toledo, never looked back. Outside of the foul stuff, Bowling Green played just as well as Toledo in that game. They just were not able to win it at the end. I mean, the Falcons shoot 52% from the field. Toledo shoots 50%. Difference is Toledo shoots a little better from 3. They make 3 more 3-pointers. Both teams struggle at the line. Toledo out-rebounds you by 3. They get 3 more offensive boards. They stay out of foul trouble a little less with key guys. They play their guys. And they made the shot when it mattered.
And I don't know, you could talk about the lights being too bright. You can joke about whatever. I don't know what the story is with the free throw shooting. I mean, is every guy on the floor just in their head? All right. How do you see that?
I think it's just a tournament. You're going to have good games, bad games. Akron came into the tournament as the best free throw shooting team in the MAC. They struggled all tournament long. They were the best in the conference this year.
I also feel like it has been a running theme this year with the free throws.
Yeah, but it really hasn't been, it could have been better, but I don't think...
That also was not the deciding factor.
No, it wasn't, because Toledo also struggled. Yeah. Now, if Toledo had made 90% of their free throws, you look at the numbers, I have them up here. 11 for 19 for BG, that's 57.9%. 7 for 13 for Toledo, 53.8%.
Yeah.
Both teams struggled.
It was the same. It was like watching the same bad movie for the 3rd or 4th time this season, where in the most critical of places, at the most critical of times, the Bowling Green offense just goes completely stagnant.
Yeah. Well, what's frustrating about it, though, is, you have the shots to win it. Even if you can look at the offense and criticize the offense, you can criticize Simon for not playing Campbell. You can criticize the free throw shooting. You can criticize all those things. In the end, Javonte Campbell didn't get fouled, didn't make a shot. BG did not get an offensive rebound. And Justin Thomas didn't make a 2-footer. That's the game right there. It's, can't make them all, but those are 2 really tough ones to miss. And that's kind of the worst way to lose a game.
Yeah. Especially having multiple chances like that. It's one thing if you have to just send a Hail Mary 3-pointer to try to tie it, but getting multiple opportunities to put in extra time or take the win. I mean, it's a tough one for Lewis.
I don't like the play with Javonte driving inside. I don't like
we're not used to that.
I'm not gonna. I was waiting for somebody to bring that up.
Well, so I'll say I like giving it to Javonte and letting him roll the play he did.
That's what you've done all season. So
I don't like doing it as early in the clock as they did.
You left 10 seconds left in the clock for them to...
But at the same time, the way it plays out, you still had the ball in your hands with the buzzer expiring 2 feet away from the basket to win it. So...
Okay, yeah, but you can... That's going off of a bunch...
No, I know. I'm saying I'm not agreeing with the decision to burn that shot that early in the clock. I'm just saying, regardless of that, you had another opportunity as well. So... It played out as well as it could have in terms of missing the shot and what happened afterwards, if you're BG. But yeah, I mean, you got to live with your best player taking that layup attempt. But I hated doing it that early in the clock. They didn't run anything to create space down low. They didn't run any screens or runs.
And it also goes to an overarching.
I mean, that is the question with the Simon offense right now. If you watch this Southern Utah offense and you watch this Bowling Green offense, something's different. And I don't know what it is. At Southern Utah, he ran a modernized version of a 7-second offense, and it was beautiful. He surrounded a driving guard with shooters. He's tried to do that personnel-wise here at BG. I think last year was the best roster construction. We just never saw him healthy. Sam Towns and Yusuf Kayat never got to MAC play. Like, we never saw that team anywhere close to full potential. So, but this year, you had guys that could shoot. They were just too hot and cold all the time, but it still just doesn't look like a Todd Simon offense to me. There is no movement. That's what he excelled at Southern Utah. And for some reason, I don't know if it's because of the personnel. I don't know what the reason is, but there just isn't here right now. And that's the big, just a very big question mark as to what's going on with that.
Yeah, I mean, it unfortunately feels, listening to the game play out, listening to you on the broadcast, it almost felt like you knew what was going to happen. And that's not to say that, I didn't think this team could beat Toledo because we've seen them do it. I mean, anybody knows this was about as even of a matchup as you had in the tournament bracket, arguably, which I guess makes sense too because it's the 4 seed and the 5 seed. So arguably it should be. But all that to say, I mean, it just felt all too familiar to stuff that we've seen all year with this team. And it kind of begs the question to me. So Tyler, I'm going to pitch this one to you. I mean, have you seen, how much do you trust the ability of Todd Simon to make adjustments when things aren't going well? Because in my mind, we haven't really seen that for the better portion of the year.
I think he's good out of halftime. I think I question late game. I think his halftime adjustments have been solid. I don't think they've been anything you can criticize too much. I think it is some of the late game situation. I mean, the one I think of is Kent State. You got to call a timeout. Kent State, you're down 1. You got 2 timeouts in your pocket. You don't use it and run a final play of just not a decent look to Myra Wall from the wing, open somewhat, but contested, and he doesn't hit that, and then you force up a quarter 3 as time's expiring. Like, I mean, it's just those kind of decisions. Like, you win that Kent State game, you might be up another seed in this tournament.
Well, no, the irony in that case being that, barring the other results that could be different from being up 1 seed, like if you switch 4 and 5, I mean, that's still Toledo.
Yeah.
Hypothetical. But
Simon's an interesting case, and I'm sure we'll get to this discussion when we get to women's and Shamil. Simon has not had problem getting talent on the team. I think the problem that he's had is developing that talent.
But I think, we've talked all about how, we've seen this game before, and you're like, well, we quite literally did see this game. Like, we saw them play Toledo in a late game in Savage Arena where Todd Simon got outcoached, and he got outcoached again in the first round of the tournament in the late game. And, we keep talking about, he's had all his chances against, the Kent State, the late game, and he should have called a timeout. How many more times is he going to be in those late game situations? Would you not think that a coach of this, I guess, standard, Division I, it would learn how to coach?
We're going to be fair. At that same point, the coach that we're talking about outcoaching him also got outcoached.
And that was bigger fish.
Yeah. But what I'm saying here is,
But would you not, if it keeps coming down to, I don't know, because, we keep saying, Bowling Green is so close. And if it's so close, you think, as a coaching staff, and having it happen in the beginning of the season, the middle of the season, and again at the end of the season, going into the tournament, you would have thought they would have had, a better game plan to know, oh, hey, maybe we don't always do the best at the end of the game, and, we're really great coming out of the half.
Who would have you liked to see take the final shot instead?
Nobody, because if you look at it, Javante Campbell.
So what are you going to change?
He played 21 minutes, and he's still your leading scorer. That just goes to show that you really have no offense outside of him.
Nick, he was the leading max scorer in conference play this year.
Yeah, I know, but
you're surprised that he was the leading scorer when he took over in the second half, is what you're saying?
I'm not surprised, because
he was down all year. Yes, because he led the MAC in scoring in conference play.
I know, but
because he would take Chris Riley.
When you play half a game and you're relying on a guy who played half a game to be your leading scorer, and you can find nobody else on the floor to even do anything outside of Justin Thomas and Glover, and Sam Towns is out there getting 9 rebounds.
I do question somewhat. I would argue 2 other best offensive players, Sam Towns and Meyerwohl, this season. At least Meyer Wool has been like streaky, but he's got offensive potential. I didn't feel like they contributed too much to the game at all.
Sam Thomas had 9 points and 9 rebounds.
Yeah, but it's the points. Like we're talking about scoring here. We're not talking about how they're playing overall.
I mean, you look at two.
I mean, it's tough to give a guy like Sam Towns the ball to end the game, but Meyer Wool didn't have a good game.
He didn't have the ball to end the game. That was Justin Thomas.
I know. I said Sam Towns didn't have the ball to end the game.
I said I know you said to give him.
No. I don't think you should give him the ball to end the game. A player like him, but I mean, it's just there's other guys that maybe with 10 seconds left. Everybody watching the game, everybody in that arena, everybody on the floor knew that Javonte was getting the ball.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so and to be clear, everyone know and play this way.
I would not have hated to have Javonte drive and kick, and just leave it up to the other 4 guys on the floor. I would, because at least you would have given your team a chance. I wouldn't have hated having Meyer Wool take a 3. I wouldn't have hated, Justin Thomas being able to do something with the ball, or Meyer Wool has been able to manufacture points at times.
Well, so throughout a lot. So right there leads to like the biggest issue with this Simon offense this year. You talk about it. Fine with a Meyer Wool 3. You know how many 3-pointers Meyer Wool shot in the game?
No.
0. Why did Meyer Wool not get 3-pointers? Meyer Wool was your best 3-point shooter this season, and you do not give him 1 attempt in the MAC tournament. Like it's those kind of things where you don't really realize it into the game until you look back on it and you just question how that happens, because for some reason Todd Simon has not had the ability to game plan and ride a hot hand, and I don't know why.
Yeah, it also weirds me out because, not only does Meyer Wool get no 3-pointers, the only reason you're in a position to even have a chance of winning the game with a last second Thomas attempt from 2 feet away was because Javon Ruffin hit a step back 3. I don't see him attempt that all season. He could do that all year. Why we not give him an ISO chance in the perimeter? Like there's different.
He could have developed through the year where it took him way too long to realize that he needs to take fewer shots a game and higher quality looks, which he realized in the second half of the year. First half of the year, he was trying to play suit man half the time and was one of the most inefficient players I've seen. But
Javonte Campbell doesn't try to play Superman.
But he had game plan.
Yeah, but looking at game plan stuff, Aiden Goins gets 6 minutes. Aiden Goins dominated Austin Parks in the paint the last time these two teams met. I don't know why you don't play him in 6 minutes when Austin Parks has 10 points, 6 rebounds, 3 offensive boards, 2 blocks, 2 assists.
That's also what happened in the beginning of the first Toledo game with Parks.
But it's those kind of things. Like it just does not make sense when you have success with guys like that. That those guys just and those bench minutes made no sense this year. If you want to criticize anything in terms of having different units, none of that made sense.
I mean, the same thing goes true for, you look at Javonte Campbell being in foul trouble. Todd Simon decides, okay, we're going to sit him. We're not going to, he's only going to play 21 minutes. Then when you have guys that even if they're not always consistent, that Meyer Wool has the capability to explode for some points. Why not try it at that point? You know what I mean? I know you're competing. Maybe you don't want to get too, too experimental. But, I mean, he was a guy who, 15 minutes, he made both of his attempts on the field, and he made both of his free throws.
How many clutch time dribble drives do we think Javonte Campbell's had this year? A lot. I mean, we'll just qualify it as a lot. I don't remember, probably 10. I don't remember really not a single time sticks out in my memory where he looked to another player. He put his eyes on the rim and he said, "Go get it." And when 4 people are standing in the way because they know that's what's happening, well, it's not. What you mentioned too before is the dribble kick. It's Todd Simon his last stop.
Yeah.
So where's that?
One thing we haven't mentioned is free throws. Javonte did lead the MAC this year in free throws shot and free throws made. I think Simon, a lot of times this season, has bet on when Campbell drives that he's either going to be able to make it or going to be able to find his way to the line.
That's just throwing a deep ball hoping you get a pass interference.
But I'm trying to figure out some of the reasoning for that. That is probably the.
And I completely understand all the reasoning. Yeah. That might be more of a commentary on the player that he didn't look, or maybe it's just like you tell Javonte, go, don't even look. Which is that you're wasting flaws are probably you might as well just ISO. I was wing everybody off.
Campbell is programmed like that because of what happened last season.
Because it's only me, I heard that he lost all his shooters, and he just learned, like, I have to win this game or no one else.
So there's a benefit. Yeah, we guys that could. He was a little huckle, but, a benefit of covering the tournament like we do is you kind of get to see every head coach talk, right? A common theme among all these head coaches, you see it on the men's side, you see it on the women's side, they're not going to change who they are in tournament. Whatever got them there, they stick with. Akron didn't shoot the 3-ball well in the championship game. They kept shooting the 3-pointer until it worked. They were never going to go away from that. Ohio, in their loss, they shot the 3-ball a ton. It was their worst 3-point shooting game of the year, and they didn't stop because that's what got them there. What's gotten Bowling Green to this point? It's giving Javonte the ball and letting him go to the rim. And they whether we like it or not, they were just never going to go away from that. I don't disagree. It is just unfortunate that that's what had to happen. Yeah, I think, because, and there is, I don't like the idea that everybody in the world knows that Javonte is getting the ball and dribbling to the right. Yeah, then you got the ball, you dribble to the right. You're fine with it. Trees in front. You need some more emotion on that play. You need something to, that's even though everyone knows, you need something to make them think about it as it's happening. That's just something I wish I knew what they told Javonte. Is it Javonte go get the bucket, or is it Javonte's just taking it and going to the rim, and you just can't tell him to stop?
It's a problem.
That's just we'll never know probably.
But I mean, like we've known this was an issue. I mean, you saw at the end of the Kent at Bowling Green loss for the Falcons, kind of the same situation. Javonte driving into traffic and nothing, going out of towards the end of that one, if I remember it correctly.
Yeah, I felt like we are like missing like the 40-something point game against UMass where he did the same thing, and that's the reason they won that game. Yeah. So like there are times where it has worked. It's not because I feel like the way we're saying, of course, there's been times it hasn't. This did work a lot this year,
right? But
so I feel like you do need also to brass.
It's also a pretty close margin of victory against a team that, I mean, obviously, as we'll touch on, overperformed in the tournament.
Yeah.
But not the best team in the MAC. I mean, the 8th seed for a reason, and they made them close. And I mean, surely that to me is refusal to learn because you won. You got the good result, so it's okay. You can't expect Javonte Campbell to score 47 points repeatedly. I mean, that's not going to happen. Nobody in there, did you believe in your right mind? Did you think he was going to score that again this year?
Well, I will say no, because no one else in the MAC got even close to that. But also, UMass is an interesting case. If we're trying to denounce that win a little bit, I will stand on this one.
They were really good.
UMass, no one ever talked about it. That travel that they have to make at that school, it really kills them because they've always been a good home team. They're 11-5 at home this year. That's non-conference and conference. They're 2-8 on the road, 4-3 at neutral sites. So in terms of that being a close game, it's always a close game with them at home. They perform very well in Massachusetts.
Yeah, so let me rephrase them because I'm not discounting UMass again, as we're going to touch on UMass for those who've been living under a rock. Beat the 1 seed, undefeated at the time, Miami Redhawks, which many people like to see, many people didn't. Regardless of all that, though, I'm not discounting what UMass is as a team, but to get, that's a good team. That's a solid tournament team.
Yeah.
I mean, so's the rest of the bracket, arguably, and to get a close win over a tournament team, you need a superhuman performance. And, do a regular season win against Toledo at home is your only other, really kind of big win. And
Kansas State at the time.
Convincing win in MAC play is what I was.
Okay, yes, yeah.
Yeah, Kansas State. I mean, I'm not going to discount that, but it's hard to care about non-conference as far as
Ohio early in conference. Yeah, has a good win.
You've got a couple.
Those are the 3. I mean, those are really pretty much those are the 3 right there.
And, I mean, none of those, again, I'll contend clearly Toledo was, a good squad to make it as far as they did in the tournament. UMass to knock off Miami, the same thing. Ohio was a tournament team. That's all fine. How did you fare against those top 3 still? You know what I mean? And I talked about it.
I don't have the number, but that's been the, I don't have the number on me, I should say, but that's been the struggle. I mean, Simon.
I'm saying you lost. Yeah. You played those teams 5 times, I want to say, this season. Kent twice, Miami twice, Akron once. Is that correct? Or did we play Akron twice? I don't say played Akron
once. We played Akron once.
So you go 0-5 against those top 3 teams.
Yeah, let's see if we count Toledo. They're a semifinal team. Who was that? Let's even count Toledo. They're a semifinal team. Yeah. So no, I don't want 1-2 record. Yeah, I don't know.
That's the thing with the UMass game is that's the first time and only time you played UMass. You played Toledo 3 times. They're prepared for the German TK.
And so I think my point is that this feels like a team that's geared towards the regular season. You know, what Tyler, to your credit, you know, the coaches aren't going to abandon what gets them to the tournament. And that's fine. I'm not asking them to. However, you're not playing basketball that's conducive to winning in the tournament. You're showing, we can skate into an 8 seed. That's not win your conference play. You know?
No, and I liked what you said there because that's whether you like
women's basketball.
whether you like Todd Simon or not, you can agree on this that he has never performed well in conference tournaments. Has a Big Sky regular season championship, a Big Sky Coach of the Year, a mid-major national Coach of the Year. His conference tournament record in his career is 10-10. For some reason, you look at it, at Southern Utah, he went 118 and 106, rebuilding a program, starting at 6-27, ended his time at Southern Utah finishing first, second, and third in the conference the final 3 years, never won the conference tournament.
And I'm not even saying that Todd Simon in his career has been,
but that's the knock on him. I don't want to make the 1-to-1 comparison because it's just not the same at this point. Todd Kowalczyk. We'll get into it probably a little bit if we talk about the championship, but Kowalczyk's never been able to win the tournament. Simon's facing the same issue right now, although he's 10 years less coached than Kowalczyk. It's the same issue he's facing. He's never been able to find that postseason success, and I think I thought about it a lot throughout the year. I talked about it with a lot of different people that know about the team and kind of threw ideas back and forth of trying to figure out what the reason was. And I came to it. The biggest conclusion I could come to is the way that he manages his rotations in the regular season. I think that he is so hot and cold with guys and so uses such a wide rotation at points during the season that when it comes time for those rotational guys to step up, I'm not fully convinced they're fully ready for it because they did not have those important minutes during the regular season because it is so hot and cold with who he chooses in the moments. I don't know if that's the reason, but that's my theory.
This was something I noticed in this game against Toledo and this could be a little bit because of the foul trouble early on, but throughout the course of the season, it was consistent with Simon where you make a mistake, you're pretty much getting subbed out. Yeah, every single time. And that didn't happen probably once throughout this entire Toledo game. And I think that's what you're saying was like the guys are not getting opportunities, guys are not getting the chance to learn from mistakes, which goes into development again, because where you look at Kowalczyk, where Blyden made a ton of mistakes. He's a freshman. He made a ton of mistakes. He didn't make a single three in their first game against. It's also the same pick, the ball in his hand for a game winner, and he hit it.
Look at the rotational guys that stepped up big in the tournament for Toledo.
Yep.
Sean Craig, Minor Strong, Austin Parks, Kyler Vanderjagt, Jalen Owinga. All of those guys have been the rotational pieces this season. Every single one of them played double-digit minutes. For BG, Aiden Goins got 6.
That's insane.
Meyer Wool got 15 and took 2 shots. Like, that stuff doesn't make sense. Why the guys that you've been going to all year, like Maya Wall saved this team at the beginning of conference play when they were struggling. He saved this team. If he doesn't go on that 2-week run, there's a shot you miss the tournament. In the fact that he ends the season with 2 shots and makes both of them. He made both of his shots. He got to the line twice, made both of those.
And then just either doesn't get in. And I just can't make right or left of that. That doesn't make any sense.
As a guy that is not an on-the-ball guy. They just don't find his hands again.
My take would be if it's not Javante Campbell taking the last shot of the game, it should be Meyer Wool. I don't think that
I was fine with Justin Thomas that game only because
he played well.
Yeah, yes, that's fine.
I know you're kicking it in a vacuum. You're just looking at the team. Who takes the final shot? You take Javante out. It's Meyer Wool.
Well,
and that doesn't go for just the last shot of the game. Like, yeah, he should be getting more. I mean, we've said that a lot of the year that he's probably he manufactures.
Yeah,
like he's really. And not just like Javante, he's got a dribble to the hoop. Like he can take mid range, he can take 3-pointers. He's got all 3 deals.
Look at Mikhail Leach. Did we see any development on Mekhi Leach this year?
I couldn't tell you who that is.
But how many times throughout the season did Mekhi Leach get consistent minutes? How many times throughout the season did Camden Carroll get consistent minutes? Through non-conference play or conference play?
I don't know.
Like maybe they're not ready. But we as media members didn't see enough to claim if they're ready or not because we didn't see anything out of them.
Well, and I'm gonna counter that with this because not disagreeing, but adding on, I guess, maybe they're not ready. I feel like as a coach, you should have a realistic expectation of where your team is at. Is the aspiration always going to be winning the MAC championship and punching your ticket to March Madness? Yeah. I don't think this team was at that level. And again, the inability. I know you performed against UMass. You performed against Ohio. You won one against Toledo. You look at Miami, Akron, and Kent across 5 games, 0-5. You're not able to perform against these top-notch teams, and we've talked about it before. We haven't seen that yet in this tenure. I think at some point, especially in a game, if it's like you're leading or you've got a little more in the bag, which I don't off the top of my head know every score at halftime from conference play. But I mean, at some point, get these guys some minutes. Developing guys is also part of your job, and it feels like just a glaring refusal to do that because we're more worried with making the tournament.
Do you know how many wins we had this year when trailing at halftime?
How many?
Take a guess. I want you to
Go 0.
I'm gonna guess 1.
correct. 1 win.
Which was
I'd have to look. I think it was Toledo.
that makes.
I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head. I just know it was 1. But you can throw around whatever you think of Simon's status at BG. He's still got 2 years in his contract. He's not going anywhere after this.
So the Falcons beat UMass trailing at halftime.
Yeah, that sounds right. He's not going anywhere.
That was like the second most recent.
He's not going anywhere after this year. But this was the year to make a deep run in the tournament based on what you were facing in terms of the bracket. You had, with how this team performed,
Everything fell so well.
I mean, how this team performed in the regular season, the fact that you drew Toledo when you could have drawn Kent,
And then Miami.
Well, that was the one that got me because if you had swept Toledo regular season, I wouldn't feel good about playing Toledo.
Oh.
But you lost a game that you shouldn't have lost, so you should have won this one. Yes, like that. Like you, there was not a, but they had no business losing the game.
You drew your rivals, who you outplayed this season
Twice.
for 78 out of 80 guts. And if you had won, you were going to face a jet-lagged, exhausted, gassed UMass team
To just fall out of life.
who had nothing else to give after that win over Miami. They were exhausted. They were going to lose that next game, whoever they faced. They were never going to win it. It was a miracle that they were able to pull off that Miami game with the state of that team coming into the tournament. So if you had beaten Toledo, I am confident you would have beaten UMass, and you would have been in the championship against Akron. And, sure, who knows what happens in championship games? Anything could have happened to that game. That was your year to make that championship game, and instead, you're going to look at it, and all people are going to see is bounce in the first round and not know the story behind that. So, 3 years, you get the semifinal once.
And I mean,
It's just not good enough with the talent of the roster. The talent that you've had, and sure, last year, it's a wash. Last year doesn't matter because of the injuries. You were never going to win that game against Akron. I don't care what the score was. If you lost, they lost by 40. You could have lost by 80. It wouldn't have mattered.
Yeah.
We're never going to win that. Javante came out 2 broken hands. He was playing with 2 broken hands against the best team in the conference and a top 5 mid-major team in college basketball. The first year of Simon is freshman year essentially here. He got the win with probably his best well-constructed healthy roster, but he only got 1 win. No ways with this roster with the draws that they had is just not good enough.
Although this is the most talented team he's had 3 years here.
I don't think it is. I think last year.
I wasn't here. I was still in high school, but
You were a freshman. Your last year.
no, the year before. You think last year was most talented?
Yeah.
I think last year I think maybe 2 years ago was the most talented. I think last year's is the best well-constructed when healthy.
Oh, so now you're just rewording everything.
Just I changed my mind a little bit on that because I'm gonna argue, guys. Like 2 years ago, the roster was top heavy.
I'm gonna argue only because you had, like multiple bona fide stars. I would argue 2 years ago and last year. We talked about if healthy. But we never saw Yusuf Kayat really do anything. I'm not saying he wouldn't have, but that's still undefeated hypotheticals as far as I'm concerned. I was just starting that conversation, but we're on that point.
I was saying that because I think it goes back a little bit to how the offense is. This team is really good. If more of honestly how Miami ran the offense with a lot of isolation plays. I feel like you had a bunch of dudes that could make shots, including Javonte Campbell, Meyer Wool, and possibly Ruffin and Thomas. Maybe as they got better later in the season, and it just didn't mix well with what the offense that Simon wants to run. And one that he just failed to run well in clutch moments.
To defend myself on Kayat real quick, double-digit scoring in 4 games, 53% from the field, 40% from deep in 6 games. You never got to see that dude. Those games were against a good Davidson team, a good Southern Miss team, Taylor and Niagara, nobody cares, Michigan State and Bellarmine. You just never got to see him in conference play. And that's also the thing. I don't know. It's college basketball, but there's just always been a ton of injuries with these Todd Simon rosters. I don't know if that's the way he coaches. It's just bad luck, most likely. It is something to mention out there. But, in the end, it's just very unfortunate the way the season ends for BG in terms of the draws and everything that they had in front of them. Because, we were all talking at the tournament. We were all going... When Miami lost, this is the golden opportunity for Bowling Green. This is it. They just couldn't capitalize on it.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, that's what you're going to look back on. I think it makes the room a little bit, the sea a little hotter. Outside is going to be back, but there's certainly more pressure now going into next year, and you don't have nearly as many things going your way. You had pretty good health. You had a pretty favorable draw. And you still get bounced in the first round. I'm not saying we don't know what's going to happen next year, certainly. But if things aren't super successful, if we happen to see a new coach in the coming years, a lot of seasons are going to be the one you look at.
Yeah, and there's a lot of answers and questions going into the off season that'll kind of determine what he's going to be set up with next year.
Well, yeah, because you have your Javonte Campbell, who did he say in the press conference that
Todd Simon said that was Javonte Campbell's last game of the year.
Okay.
So yeah, we don't know why that is, because Javonte technically could have another year if he wanted to exercise it from JUCO. Maybe the NCAA says that's not possible. Maybe he's going to transfer. Maybe he's going to enter for the draft. We don't know. All we know is he's not coming back to BG.
All right, but that so to the point, Javonte's gone. You have. What is Towns is done? Towns is gone. So yeah, you're going into the offers is on. So we're gonna expect Tommy Byron.
They'll end this exercise. Campbell's gone. Thomas is gone. Glover's gone. Towns is gone. Ruffin is gone.
So we're gonna expect Todd Simon to go out and rebuild another roster for the 3rd straight year, and we're gonna expect a different result and/or outcome. And what he has 2 years on this contract, so we're just gonna sit here. And I know you're graduating, so you really, I'm not going to say you don't care, obviously, but, we're going to see another 2 years of his contract to see two new teams get built, and we're going to tell the same thing of them barely getting into the tournament.
Yeah, that is a way to look at it. It's also that's kind of,
and I know that's college basketball now.
Yeah.
Look
at Toledo. Look at Toledo. Toledo makes a run in the tournament this year. They had to completely rebuild that roster for last year. Sonny Wilson's really the only big guy that stayed. Him and Austin Parks, and a few others. There's not a ton, but he added a freshman in Leroy Blyden Jr. that changed everything. BG's got the top player in Michigan coming in next year, so that is something to look forward to.
Definitely, it feels eerily familiar. I think to Nick's point, the amount of talent that you're losing, that they're going to have to rebuild, and if we talk about it in a year from now. I can't say I will be surprised if we see it look pretty similar to end as this year did. And I think it becomes a question for the higher-ups of, what is our standard of expectation here as, a tier mid-major program. I think that's a hard conversation. That's not our job to have, fortunately, because somebody else has to do that. But that's kind of just the nature of the thing right now.
I will say, too, it's not like Bowling Green men's basketball was a terrific program when Simon took over. They had missed the tournament for 2 straight years. So for us to also be sitting here in year 3 expecting a championship appearance, maybe that had a little much.
I wouldn't say I was expecting it, but like,
I don't know. I felt like the expectation around everyone was that they wanted 2 wins because he had only gotten 1 win in the previous 2 years. Maybe I was misreading.
No, that's a fair expectation before the season started, but I think it's more so after you got your draw, and especially after UMass beat Miami. Then the Toledo BG game was a semifinal. I mean, as you said, and I think a lot of people would agree that you're just beating UMass is going to have too much of a hangover. We're on the road, too much of a hangover.
I will just say that, like, what the point I was trying to get to is that he had to rebuild the roster completely when he got here. So,
yeah,
the fact that he's had to rebuild it year after year may also be due to the fact that he had no cornerstone players except for Sam Towns when he got here. You are losing a lot of people, but if you can get Shackelford to stay, he is a sophomore who played very well this year. If you can get Maya Wall to stay, he has another year of eligibility. If you can develop Leach and Carroll, they're young guys that can keep going. You're going to have the top freshman in Michigan coming in. Like, there's pieces here.
I found Maya Wall
sticking around. I'm psyched. Dude, you got stuff to develop. But yeah, why would you say?
Yeah, if you didn't get developed in the way that you wanted to, on a step up like this to Bowling Green, and you got 2 shots in the biggest game that you've been in.
Also, this is just a feeling thing, and I think will definitely get disagreement. I don't think it was a very heart-filled performance through all minutes of the game. I don't think outside of the last 2 minutes did I feel like they were really fighting tooth and nail for. I mean, it just looked like another regular season game they were playing against. Didn't even look like a rivalry game, in fairness. And it's a rivalry playoff game. I would have expected to see a little bit more.
I don't think I saw it from Toledo either, though.
Yeah, maybe not. No. But they did have some, like, Leroy Blyden's insane. That kid's unbelievable. He needs to get out of the MAC.
He's not MAC. He said he's returning for next year in this post-game press conference at the championship. So
he's unreal.
He's going to be the favorite for MAC Player of the Year next year. So
that all being said, looking at the actual tournament bracket as it played out, Akron with the first 3-peat on the men's side ever. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, Akron, top
and
Toledo.
For the past 5.
4 in the past 5.
And John Gross is now up to 6 MAC tournament championships, 2 at Ohio, 4 at Akron.
Do you think he's got, like, eyes on someone else?
I mean, there could be, but he's got the biggest NIL fund east of the Mississippi for mid-major, so probably not.
Pretty cozy spot there, it would seem. That in mind, Bowling Green, the season over for the men with that tournament loss, barring any incredibly unlikely. Am I correct in saying postseason tournament there's not?
CBI is canceled this year, so there's no shot.
Sorry to hear that for Foster, obviously. But
there was a shot if you were going to CBI that you could get a CIT bid, which is the Florida Tier tournament.
Without Javante, though? Well, they had just got Javante to continue playing.
I don't know what would have happened there, but essentially you have the NCAA tournament. Next step is NIT. Next step CBI. Next step CIT. The only one they would have had a shot at is CIT, and I don't think they would have gotten it regardless. But now that CBI is gone, there's no shot at that.
Regardless, looking like the end of the
unless everyone else denies bitch, which is possible.
But either way, that's going to do it for men's basketball talk today, as that season is now all but over. We're going to go ahead and move on to the women's discussion because a similar scenario is setting up, at least looking into the week for the MAC tournament. Lucas, just, take us through the matchup, kind of what went down, your just initial thoughts from being there, and then we'll break it down a little more.
Initial thoughts for Bowling Green Ball State or the entire tournament?
Ball State.
I kind of disagree about the initial matchup feeling with it. Ball State was the absolute worst matchup they could have gotten. They had absolutely no chance against Ball State. They just didn't.
What I meant was kind of like mid to late regular season. It felt like you might be on the edge of missing the tournament, and then you end up not the matchup.
Yeah, okay, I totally agree. Yeah, they were in danger of missing it until the final week or two before they won a couple tough road games. Ball State, for all intents and purposes, are still one of the 2 best teams in the MAC. You can make an argument they're the best, but obviously Miami just did the double, so you got to give it to them. It was a terrible matchup. And these two teams on that once in a regular season on the road. Ball State won pretty comfortably in Muncie. It was kind of what I expected and also kind of not at the same time. Bowling Green's formula this year in winning any sort of game this season or any sort of game that they were even or against a team that was higher than them is you win defensively. I think I counted that if they hold teams under 65 points per game, they pretty much have won every single time except Miami when they lost at the Stroh Center. There might be a couple other games there. Once they get into the 70 range, they lose. Anytime this is a track meet or a high-scoring game, they just haven't found a way to win this season because this team just hasn't been able to shoot all season. They just were not a good shooting team. They were 39% shooting from the field going into the tournament. That was at the mid to bottom for conference play. If you go to all full conference stats, it looks a little bit better, but then you got to factor in some of the D3, D2, and NAIA schools they played in December when they shot the ball really, really well. Ball State, for all intents and purposes, came out firing. But the first quarter was pretty even. They up 19-15. Ball State won that one. But Kai Woods played really well in the first. And in the first half, she had double figures in points. She was the only Falcon to have double figures. She hit a lot of tough shots, which is stuff that she hasn't done consistently this season, but that is what she likes to do for whatever reason. She likes to drive inside and take highly contested shots. And most of the time they haven't gone in, but she's had a couple games this year where she's gone off and scored for a handful of points. Kent State first game comes to mind where she was in the 20s and scoring. And she obviously did there, but when your two best players and all-conference players, Janae Donahue, MAC defensive player, all-MAC honorable mention, all-MAC defensive team, goes 1 for 8 in the first half. Same with Paige Core, who also went 1 for 8, and you combine for 2 for 16 in the first half. You're not going to win. I mean, you're not. I mean, and so much this season was those two players pretty much dragging the entire offense by themselves or by a duo, maybe by a collective. Maybe a third player gets hot, like a Taylor or Lauren Gherkin, but those two are your main players, and they're the main floor generals. They're everything to your offense and everything to your team. When they don't shoot that well to start in a Paige Core picked it up in the second half, but when Donahue just has her worst shooting performance of the season, 2 for 16, you're not going to win. And Donahue was, in my opinion, the best player on this team this season. Kohler right behind her. And that's the difference in tournament. In a tournament, you need your best players to be your best players and step up. They might take some time and throughout the game. Maybe they have a bad first, have a bad second, but they never got comfortable. Ball State's defense, perimeter defense, was outstanding. It really was. They didn't make Bowling Green comfortable at all from 3. 3 for 16 shooting from 3. 0 for 7 in the first half. They didn't attempt a 3 at all in the first quarter till the final seconds where Lauren Gherkin just jacked up a hopeful 3. Ball State, though, you knew they're one of the best defensive teams in the MAC. They were the best scoring team in the MAC coming to this one. They just wore Bowling Green down. Just overtime as the game went on, just wore them down. And that ended up being the difference in the game. In the third quarter, also the fourth quarter, Bowling Green had that spell in the second half where they did come back after being down by double figures after a really, really bad second quarter and came back into it. But when it got close, the star players are pretty solid for Ball State stepped up. Bowling Green went stagnant and didn't make their opportunities. And then just down the stretch from the free throw line, Ball State kind of converted. And it's the same story 3 years in a row. You get bounced from the MAC tournament if you're head coach Fred Shamil, so you go 0 for 3. And I don't think if you go back in previous years, it was more evenly matched with those Buffalo teams. 2 versus 7, Ball State was a really good team, but you can't help but feel after this one just feeling disappointed. But you're not surprised, which is how inconsistent the season was the entire time. You're 500 in MAC play, and just going to get it done.
And I mean, that's the thing, it's hard to compare them. Obviously, different games. On the men's team side, you're most upset, to look at it or like, what sticks out is that that's a team that they could have beaten. I don't think this team, I don't think anybody, really analyzing the matchups, analyzing these teams all year. I don't think anybody was picking Bowling Green in this one. Do you? No. That just, kind of tells you the team they were and have been all year. Like you said, Kohler and Donahue are kind of your two consistent staples. Kohler shored up a little bit to make a shaky start look better. 2 for 16 is, I mean, kind of inexcusable from your star player and the player. Even when Paige Kohler was streaky at times, I feel like we've seen that from her, in her entire tenure as a Falcon. And, Donahue has been the player to step up. Like when Kohler's been streaky, and I mean, just non-existent. 10 rebounds, fine. 5 steals, awesome. Contributing in other ways. But when one of your key scorers, 2 for 16, I can't even. I don't know what else to say about it. It's genuinely one of the worst shooting performances I've seen in a significant game.
Yeah, and Kohler's had many games this year where it was inefficient shooting, but she finished in double figures and led the team in scoring. Donnie really hasn't. There's been a lot of games where she hasn't attempted many shots, but
it's like it feels so out of character, and that's why it's troubling. It's like, how does that happen? You got to give credit to Kaya Woods again. Contributing double figures, second highest on the team, and making 50% of her shots from the floor. Lauren Gherkin played 29 minutes off the bench and was arguably kind of out there shot chucking too. 5 for 13 is not awful, but it's not great.
Mm-hmm. Well, part of the game plan, which has always been their game plan this season, is gain defensive stops and gain downhill, which they do streaky in games. But Shamil talked about post-game that he wanted to force the officials to make some foul calls on some of those highly contested shots because it wasn't just Kai Woods. I'm trying to think of a shot where Donahue had that was just open. A lot of them was her dribbling baseline and taking a contested shot, your double team or not. And in my opinion, there were some calls that the officials missed that should have sent Bowling Green to the free throw line, but then you're just shoulda, coulda, woulda. They're not going to call and adjust your game plan mid-game. If it's going to be that physical game, which it was from start to finish, you're going to have to alter it in a bit and maybe get some more shooting on the outside. But again, Ball State knows you have 2 players that are threats from the outside, and they swarm them. So what are you going to do? You're going to go back to try and just bait officials in the fouls. Shots don't go. You're going to get whistle blown, and you end up losing by double digits.
And it's interesting, too, because I have kind of 2 thoughts on that. Number one, I don't really think there's almost any double-digit loss you can look at in a basketball game and say fouls purely made the difference. And yes, if it's a 1-2 point game, fine. You can make that case. You can be salty about it. But, you don't lose by 12 because, you just didn't get these calls. And also, in the same vein of, hey, we're sending Javante Campbell to drive inside and either make the bucket or get fouled. That's kind of the same gambit you're playing there. And that's not, that's not sustainable. Will it work sometimes? Maybe. Will it work against teams that are less disciplined on defense? Sure. Do you want to change up your identity going into the tournament? Fine, no. But also, why is that your identity if you, I think anybody could pretty well have said, yeah, that's probably not going to work against a disciplined, top tier in the conference defense. So, why is this the game plan?
It's like watching a movie with a really bad ending. It's going to have a bad ending, and then it happens, and then you're just left kind of like disappointed, even though you're going to have.
Like, I don't know what I was expecting, but it still stings.
Yeah, and each quarter is different, each game's different, each matchups. But this team had a really problem with turnovers at the start of the year, and then they got really better at not turning the ball over, not letting opponents capitalize off turnovers down the stretch of the year. They gave Ball State 11 points off turnovers in the first quarter, which was 11 of their 19 points. And then they gave them 0 in the second, just 3 in the third, and 2 in the fourth. But you look at those 11 in the first, it's like, okay, we'll have a better start. Don't have such a sloppy start in the first quarter. And who knows what happens down the stretch. You never know. And it's frustrating. And even bench points, Bowling Green had 20-11, but even the subs that came in, the timing they did, who they were, didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Adam Duff and I were clamming for Jaden Cook to come in because Cook actually came off her best performance of the year against NIU down the stretch, and she seemed to have really gotten better and not getting into foul trouble, just being more smart, ready for passes in the post, just being overall more ready to play when you come off the bench. And they had no one to match up Tessa Towers, and no one did know one to match up Tessa Towers in the MAC because she's the most physically imposing player on the women's side in the conference. But Jada Cook is maybe an inch shorter, I want to say, if you look at him. And Jada Cook had just a point or so, but you could tell it drew Towers, her attention away from Donahue or Ellis that were inside. It's like, well, that's a mismatch in itself. Just get a big out there and have Towers at least just go to her just to guard her. And I did that, and that's when they kind of on that run the second half to at least tie the game back up. And I think if he would have went more big with the lineup, the game outcome could have been a little bit different.
Well, not only that, but, in the same vein, we've talked about the men's game. We saw Todd Simon not play Javante Campbell when he was in foul trouble. Not talking about fouls, but just looking at inefficiency. I know you don't want to break the confidence of a player. You want them to keep shooting and, try to get right. At some point, you need to be giving, in my opinion, meaningful minutes to other players. Like your stars not making it. And I mean, at what point, Janae Donahue played 38 minutes. She contributes in, every phase of the game. But, I mean, offensively, she was not there to her standard and to the standard this team needed to have a fighting chance at all. I mean, at what point do you get some of those other rotation players more in the mix? I know
I don't think Donahue's the one you take off the floor, though.
Well,
No,
I'm not saying she is, but then even other players should have had more shots, even in your starters or your, and give some more shots to Taya Ellis. Let Kaya Woods have the more volume at that point.
Why was Donahue the entire game guarding a person that could not shoot? Number 24 on Ball State, I believe it was. Couldn't shoot. We have our best defender on somebody that can't shoot the ball. Why?
that's a question that I don't have the answer to.
The offense is always I have the whole rant on the.
You're talking about Enes Tagayi, who had 8 points. This we were referring to, number 24.
Yes. She was great on the board. She was great defensively. She was great on the inside. She could not shoot, and I feel like there was other people on BG that could have guarded her. I don't know why Donahue, who is the MAC Defensive Player of the Year, the best defender that we have, is not guarding one of Ball State shooters. She's a good perimeter defender.
Yeah, that confused me as well. I don't know if they just weren't pure on size, but Ball State in itself, their total 5 is a size mismatch with those. I mean, I gotta look at exact measurements, but I mean, Bree Stellenbein, for all intents and purposes, 18 points. She's not small. Tessa Towers, small. Grace Kingery is not.
Towers that's kind of how Stellenbein at 6'2". Yeah, 6'2" is a bit out of the size range, I think, for May.
Yeah,
I mean, she can really defend, especially the ball, but that's height, that you don't really have. I mean, which is I think not a bad point by you, but more so all like a commentary on just the strict mismatch of just how talented they are based on the size. Like they just had more size.
Yeah,
and you can put enough people out there to guard. And I just how big they were.
I've had comments on here about the offense for the BG team that I've complained about, but I mean defensively, I've always liked what Jamila's done in these types of games, and I just felt like, I mean, they were playing hard defense. It schematically it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me, and I know Nay is probably out of her size range no matter who she's guarding on this Ball State team, just because of how tall and talented this Ball State team is. But if it's me, I have a really good defender, a really good perimeter defender, I'm putting her on a shooter.
Well, also you also got to understand Ball State's trying to do the opposite too.
Yeah,
they're probably making sure that Nay is on their worst.
Oh yeah.
So, but also her sagging, she was sagging off that whole time.
Yeah.
And that allows them to just run a pick. If that person's not fighting over the screen, easy 3. I'll do it. And they did that over and over and over again.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about this, but Taya Ellis only playing 16 minutes
Yeah.
and having a pretty bad game. That was one of her worst games and just 2 points. It didn't make a lot of sense to me because she, down the stretch, was playing the best basketball of her collegiate career, and she was the main reason why they won that 3-game win stretch, beating Ohio, Toledo, and Western Michigan. 2 of those, 2 at home, 1 on the road, and overtime. In my opinion, she was the third team's third best player this year besides Donahue and Kohler. And you give her 16 minutes, only had 1 personal foul, didn't really play her all in the second half. She still had 6 rebounds, which was second on the team. But I don't know if there was something else we just don't know about, or the matchup was just a bad matchup. But I don't agree with that because she is still one of our tallest players, and she's been trusted in that 5. I mean, if you all season long, and then in the biggest game, the biggest moment, then you find takes her out. I don't get that, because then you don't play with a true big. You don't have Moxie in. You never put Jaren Cook in. So the 5 you have is Lauren Kirkin, who's a forward. That doesn't make sense to me. Why do you go small ball or try to change it up against a Ball State team that has 3 players are 6 foot above?
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's a bad matchup, though, just regardless for any of our bigs. I mean, the teams you mentioned, Toledo was really hampered in size the second half of the season. Ohio's a shooting team. I don't know enough about Western Michigan to make a case on that one. I would have gone Moxie down low just for rebounding purposes only. You were never going to out-physical them in the paint. You were never going to win the paint. I think why he may have gone small is to try to have a shot to outshoot them.
Yeah.
And that also, their whole idea was to try to get inside and draw fouls. And once that didn't work, and once he realized they were not going to draw it, I think he scrambled and had no clue what to do. And I think he got thoroughly outcoached by Brady Saley, and I think that's what it was, and he just threw stuff at the wall and hoped that it stuck, and it just didn't.
It felt very much like both physically outmatched as well as outcoached in this one. We've got more on this. We're not done with this topic yet, but we are going to take a break for station identification, so we'll be right back here on the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Here in the second hour of the Zig Zone once again, myself, Holden Rook, as well as Tyler Kavlitz, Lucas Kleinmeyer, Andrew Smith, Nick Winholtz, and Ben Korak from the Falcon Media Sports Network, still talking about women's basketball. And again, on a big stage, it just feels like, players weren't ready to rise to the occasion, and there wasn't a good enough game plan to really, throw too much of a haymaker in this one.
What Tyler said, I agree with most of it. Moxie is someone I'd like to come in as well. She came in for a handful of seconds. She came in, got 2 quick personal fouls, subbed her out, never put her back in. So I would have put her back in the second half a little bit just to see what she can do. But yeah, I think just the mid-game adjustments, in your initial game, your plan A not going to fruition, and now you need to think about plan B. And if your plan B is outshoot Ball State, not bad, but I am struggling at the top of my head to find either we just outshot the opposing team and won. This is not a team. Middle of this team constructed is not outshoot you. It's defensive team. That's just how they are. So that's interesting, and yeah.
And I mean, that defense too is what has allowed them to get away with, having their primary shooters. There's how many games again has Paige Kohler been, somewhat inefficient, but still, it's through volume and eventually finding some shots that land, still able to put up some strong.
That was the problem with the offense. It's just such a volume offense. Whether in the paint or outside, they don't have. It's just, and it is because of their defense the only reason that the offense has been able to put up the points they do. Because of how inefficient it is, the only reason they put up the points they do is they get 10 more possessions than the other team because of the defense. It's the only reason.
Yeah, it is. Even the starting 5, Jasmine Fern starting, he was kind of just hot and cold he started Gherkin and Fern. It was kind of between those two for the 5th spot. He ended up going with Fern because he liked Gherkin as a 6th man off the bench. It worked in this game that she had 13 points, had a couple threes, and played 30 minutes. Fern only played 20, but only took 4 3-point attempts, which if you're going to try to outshoot them or try to get back in the game, I don't know why you would try to get her more. Fern's it's what she's known for. But interesting enough, but even there, it's just disappointing. It really just is. There's really no way around it, but throughout the year, it's just been consistent up and down. That stretch they won, though, towards the end of the season, you kind of had a little bit of hope of, wow, they beat Toledo, you beat Ohio. Got a little bit of momentum. Ohio upset Central Michigan 89-88. It was one of my favorite games in the entire tournament. Toledo lost in the championship game to Miami yesterday. Those are 2 good teams. They did beat them.
And Toledo brought there by an upset too. So again,
yeah. So I was hopeful that maybe they do have a win in them, upset them, because everyone was pretty much counting them out. And instead, the experts are right. And you look at next year and the future of this team. You got one player in the portal, not officially, but Jerry announced it, and Paige Kohler announced her intention to enter the transfer portal, which is pretty big news. That was not even 24 hours after they lost. So there's that we'll have more on. I have something on that on bgfalconmedia.com, and there'll be more depending on what happens with that. Kai Wood's out of eligibility, Kendall Moxie out, Emily Seesaw out of eligibility. Jasmine Fern was on her senior day, even though she looks as a redshirt junior on the roster. Who knows? You don't really know what this team's going to look like next year, but I can tell you it's going to be a completely different team.
And, that bodes poorly. One of the few players that, you could have potentially returned that were significant contributors announcing intention to enter transfer portal, and also so quickly after. It is, granted into a little bit of speculative territory, but, for how quick that announcement came out, that's not something that just comes about spur of the moment.
It's just sad news. And you can't blame Kohler. You can't, but it's sad because we talked about the men's side a little bit. It's just now the reality of college basketball and college athletics. Kohler is was the face of the program, and it's kind of like your selling point. It's like you sell tickets or you have posters, you have Kohler's face on it. She was trying to take over from Fleming and Velasco as that number one option and trying to be the face of the program, and it just didn't work out this year. It just didn't. And, interviewing her and being around the team and stuff, she is a phenomenal person and a great captain of being around. I mean, she is clear what you need. If you're gonna build a program around her, you build around Paige Kohler and the person. She is everything you'd want in a captain and leader, but sometimes things just don't work out, and it just didn't work out this year for one reason or another. And she's preparing to move on. She is graduating from Bowling Green. I think it's worth noting she's graduating from BJSU. Will enter as a graduate transfer. So Bliss as a junior, graduating a year early, going to pro as a year.
Definitely a tough one for Falcon fans to swallow, the departure of Kohler, adding even more question marks to an offseason that's certainly going to be filled with them. Looking at that tournament bracket, number 1 seed Miami of Ohio taking care of business on the women's side. If you had to, ask which side the Miami team was going to be the one to carry through and get the ring, a lot of people might have thought differently.
Yeah, the women's team actually doing what the men's team couldn't do, which is pretty interesting. How funny would it be if the women's team go dancing and the men's team don't? Oh, that'd be pretty funny. I think all of mid-major college basketball would sue the NCAA. Yeah, probably at this point. Miami, man, just solid defensively. And we talked about how teams don't really change their game plan, and Miami really never really did. But they were a defensive team. They won by their defense in the regular season. They were not shoot the lights out team. They won by defense. They won low scoring. If you go back to here, the Stroh serve, they beat Bowling Green 51-49 and won the lowest scoring games of the entire season. Went down the last shot, but Miami pulled through. They shot incredible against Ohio in the second round. Tyler and I were talking about it ad nauseum at the event, which was like they have a shot like that. I believe it was 16 for 32 for 3. That was the best shooting performance all year, and it came in the tournament.
It was second best, and their best was against Ohio because they made 17 against Ohio earlier in the year. So 2 of their 4 best shooting performances in program history came this year against the same team.
Yeah, and then Toledo, they shot the ball well against Toledo as well. They were up 20-6 at one point in the first time in the championship game. They just continued to shoot the ball well. That wasn't something that they were known for. Was shooting a weakness for them? No, but it wasn't their biggest strength.
No, just kind of poured it on
there all the time. For example, Ohio with his basketball was the number 1 3-point shooting team in the MAC, and they couldn't hit a 3 to save their life in the semifinal round.
You get cold and you get cold. It's that simple.
Exactly. So Miami, I was extremely impressed with Glenn Box and just his overall demeanor, his confidence, and some arrogant, kind of borderline a little bit, but just his you can't fault the man. I mean, he was confident. I mean, he knew his game plan. He knew that he trusted his players. He trusted his game plan, their preparation. And they went and executed 3 games in a row, and they're going dancing for the first time since 2008 in almost 2 decades. So give them all the credit in the world. I mean, they deserve that. It's nice to have a different team win it. It's been the Ball States and the Kent States. Buffalo's been there, and Toledo's obviously been there. But Miami was a team that went from 9 wins to a couple years ago to really good last year, but getting out early in the MAC tournament to winning the whole thing next year. And no one thought they were going to be that good, at least in my opinion. I didn't think they were going to be this good, knew they were going to be better. But give them all the credit in the world, and they get to play March Madness.
No, a big turnaround. And that leads me into the last thing I want to throw at you before we move on from this one. You look at a team like that, 9 wins a couple of years ago and able to, kind of turn things around this quickly. And it has to, kind of put that same microscope on the Falcons. The program was in a very strong place before Fred Schmiel arrived here. Obviously, losing your coach to a Power 4 stop is never something you plan for, and you can't expect the team to get better from that necessarily. But, it feels like they haven't been, they haven't really come very close, I would argue, to, where those Freilich teams were at prior to her departure.
If you remember, Frederick was here for 5 seasons, and her first 2 years were pretty bad. I remember interviewing Katie Hemphley about it, and they were pretty woeful. They didn't make the MAC tournament. They had
21 and 10 and 21 in those first 2 years.
yeah, and I think they have 2 MAC wins in one of those seasons, 2 conference wins.
2 and 16, 3 and 15. They go 21 and 8, 14 and 4 the next year, 17 and 16, 10, 10 the next year, and then finally you're 31 and 7, 14 and 4 to make the championship game.
So it took time. They never started out like this with Fred. It's been just, it feels like through the same years. You're kind of just sitting above 500. You're slightly above 500. MAC, well, this year you were 9-9, but last year you were 11-7. Year before, I believe you were 10-8. So you're a tier above 500, and then postseason comes around, and then you're one and done. They just kind of feel like repeating years a little bit. It's not the end of the world. It's not the worst thing. It's not like you're not competitive at all by any stretch of the imagination. They've had big upset. They had a couple upset wins with them against Toledo, but you're not what you were at the end of Freilich. And at the end of at least my freshman year in here, and that's the frustrating part, knowing the success of what this program has. 11 conference tournament titles is the most in any program in the MAC, and knowing that you're kind of just tittering at mid in a way, which is kind of more of a bad word in nowadays in terms of just like context, but you're kind of just there in a way. You're there and you get bounced first round.
The most frustrating part, I think, is just where the roster was at when he took it over.
Yeah.
I mean, Morgan Sharps, Anu Velasco, Sophie Zeke, and Olivia Hill, Lexi Fleming, and those are really the main core people that came over or that stayed from Freilich.
Alyssa Brett, that was a transfer. Oh, she was gone. She was gone.
But like you look at that roster that he took over. You look at the roster now. We talked about Simon. His problem has not been getting talent. It's been developing it and maybe getting the best potential out of it. Chenille just hasn't gotten talent. His best addition has been Erica Porter, which Erica Porter was good, but he hasn't had another marquee addition next to Erica Porter.
Yeah. For the transfer portal, Erica Porter has definitely been the most successful one he's had because she was a starter for 2 years and was very efficient. I wish you another 4, but honestly, she has some games where she got in the foul trouble, but she all tends to.
She set a program record with field goal percentage and a MAC record of field goal percentage. Like the slander that she got when she was here was crazy.
Yeah.
When she set a conference record, like she was a great player.
Yep.
Oh, that's been for all intents and purposes. She was a great player. She set a MAC record.
That's what I said.
Yeah, but you don't need to put all intents and purposes on it. But that's what I said. Like, she's been the only transfer addition that's been what decent. Like, Fred just has not built good roster. Like, I mean, we look at the roster. Defense is their identity. They don't have a roster built towards any offensive identity. There's no cohesiveness in that unit. It is literally just players that you're throwing together and hoping they can figure out how to make it work.
And so here, kind of circling back to like the aim of my question, it's always going to be a tough one going into an off season. I mean, how much, how convincing is the case for them? I don't know. You can correct me on what like Fred's remaining contract currently is. How convincing to you is the case to let that contract ride out?
Oh, they'll let her. I mean, Fred's not going anywhere. I mean, he's on too much money for mid-major schools. That is the top budget in the MAC schools to just let him go, and just the profile, the hiring. Unless Fred Chenille would have his personal say in it, I don't think there's any chance of him letting go this all season, which I think
the reason it feels like a question to me is like, I hear what you're saying about the first couple of years of Freilich being bad. Freilich took over a worse program than Fred did.
Right.
No, I mean, he always had assistant coaching experience. One of the best. He needed a tournament win next year in the country. He needed one this year.
But he needs one next year because, I mean, next year is the year where Derek's not going to be worried about pulling the trigger because there's going to be 1 year of that contract and that buyout's not going to be that big.
Yeah.
Right now, I think you're probably right. I mean, we don't have the actual numbers of the contract. We don't have those publicly available. You'd have to imagine the buyout is probably around the $200K plus number, which I would highly doubt the university would like to pull that right now.
Can you also correct or refresh my memory? Is his current contract an extension off his initial signing or what?
Him and Simon both signed 5-year deals.
Day one. Okay.
You're gonna need he's definitely going to have probably the hottest seat in BGSU athletics next year. So
You're going to need a conference win, but you're also going to need a regular season. You're not going to need to be, a top 4 or 5, so you're going to need to be up there for sure. You need to install belief again amongst.
I think and said Mark he would be a 20-win regular season. Yeah, which he hasn't. I mean, Freilich had 2 of them. Outside of Freilich, you haven't had a 21 season since the 2013-14 year. That's kind of unacceptable for a program the stature of this one. So I think a 20-win season is probably necessary for him and Simon.
Definitely could be a hot one to watch for sure. Unfortunate that you two will be graduated, but still an interesting story to watch continue to unfold. But women's and men's basketball both.
We will both have coverage of transfer portal for respective programs too. So stay tuned to BG Falcon Media for all that coverage.
Always important as it goes into the off season, but ultimately men's and women's basketball teams for Bowling Green going out rather unceremoniously. But moving on from that, there are other sports still well into play and having a little bit more success. So Ben, it's finally time to put you on the spot. First weekend of conference play for the softball team. Ben Korak, what'd you say?
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Central Michigan is a team that finished third in the Mid-American Conference last year, had problems in the tournament. They lost both of their first 2 tournament games, so that wasn't great. But they're a really good team. They brought back nearly everybody like BG did. And they came into town, played fairly good games. First game had a great pitching performance from Mackenzie Langen, their ace. And for Bowling Green, Mackenzie Kraftsick went toe-to-toe with her. I mean, she in that game continued on to a stretch of 21 straight innings without an earned run, which is an incredible mark, and didn't have that same success today in the third game of the weekend. But that first game against Central Michigan, a 1-0 win, a walk-off sac fly with 1 out from Peyton Steffes, your 9-hitter, that knocked in Jillian Gardner from third base. I will say didn't get to see a replay, saw a good picture from Coyle Withrow, one of our photographers, and I thought so in real time. I believe she was out, wasn't called on the field. So it stands as a 1-0 win for BG and a great one for this team. The second game, Central Michigan got out to an early start and some errors really plagued. I think it was 3 or 4 errors that the Falcon infielders made. They made a couple today too that weren't great, but a much more lopsided 8-2 loss today. That's 7-4. The outcome can strictly be due to errors. I mean, 2 from second baseman Hannah Hunt, I believe, 1 from Addie Martin at third, or 2 for Addie Martin, 1 for Hannah Hunt at second base. First time first week on dirt at Missouri Field, first time at dirt at home, but you played on dirt a couple of times. It's unforgivable that you make those errors. Be a much closer game, and you might have a chance to win the series against a very good Central Michigan team, but alas, they could not. They're 1-2 in conference play. I think a pretty good weekend. It set the bar fairly high, I would say. I mean, Central Michigan's probably going to finish a top 5 team likely, and you were an error, maybe 2 errors away from beating them on the weekend. So that should set you pretty high in the Mid-American Conference.
Yeah, I mean, looking at the current standings, obviously only 1 weekend of conference play, but you like to start out in a good spot anytime you can. Being at 1-2, there's 3-0-3 teams at the bottom, only 2 teams at 3-0, Kent State and Akron. You'd think you're reading men's basketball with those 2 at the top, but jokes aside, not a bad start at all against a team that you knew was going to be a challenge for this team. And it's like frustrating because on one hand, you hate to see those errors, but it also inspires so much optimism when it's like, hey, arguably Bowling Green beat themselves in that one. I mean, you probably win the weekend if not for, completely avoidable, issues like that.
Yeah, and it's not just that, but my focus immediately goes to Addie Martin and Hannah Hunt.
Really? Addie Martin?
Yeah. Well, and not in the way that she's been so good, but the way that she played very poorly this series. I mean, her and Hannah Hunt, arguably the worst 2 batters. Definitely they had the errors on the weekend. They're the 2 best hitters. One of the 2 of them led in every statistical offensive category last year, and they were completely absent. I think each of them got a hit today. They were pretty much hitless yesterday. Hannah Hunt's been moved to the bottom of the order. Addie Martin was down at the bottom of the order to see more beneficial pitches. She was back up at the top this weekend and didn't hit very well. Wouldn't be surprised if next weekend they're both toward the bottom of the order, which you know how good of players they are, so you don't feel that much concern right now because more than likely they'll hop out of the slump that they're in. But I do feel like that's not a good sign. They had pretty poor performances first week in MAC play at home. They're definitely focused on specifically getting them. If you don't touch anybody else on the team, everybody else didn't play bad at all or did exactly what you expect them to do. They certainly underperformed, the only two players that did so this weekend. So I would definitely look to Addie Martin and Hannah Hunt going forward because I think they're going to take leaps ahead. And Hannah Hunt, I mean, she's hitting 229 right now. She led the team in batting average and on-base percentage last year. So that's not a great mark for her. And something I assume will change, something that needs to change.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to think that, they wouldn't bust this slump. I mean, history for those two has told us that that's, very much an outlier performance. So, I mean, I would be also surprised to not see them bounce back. But, what do you know of Western Michigan? They started 1-2 also for their conference play schedule. They took on Miami at Miami. They won 8-6 on Friday. And then they lost both games of a doubleheader on Saturday, 6-5 in the first one, then 9-1 in the second of those doubleheaders. So 1-2 for the weekend. What kind of performance do you think the bounce back is pretty immediate here? Are you expecting the pendulum to completely swing the other way for those batters? And what's your kind of outlook for those three games this upcoming weekend?
Yeah, I think they're a bit different of a team than last year when we saw them. So it's pretty tough to judge, and especially in softball, like there's a limited amount you can watch of Mid-American Conference softball. So especially in the pre-MAC season, but I don't think they're to the level of Central Michigan. They did take a win against Miami, and Miami's a real good team, so maybe that's telling. I think they had a win over Ohio State as well. I remember seeing that. I don't know if that was a series or just one game.
It was
11-10. Ohio State's not great, but still Big Ten. So I think it'll either be you win one or you win two. You really do need to win two. Buffalo's not very good. You have them following up, so if you can, bring your conference record up to 500 going into a team that you should probably beat at least 2, if not 3 times. I think that'll be a good piece. But every game is going to ride on the pitching staff and what the pitching staff does. Mackenzie Kraftsick is pretty solid. Had a bad outing today, but had 3 great ones in a row before that. So, she was kind of due for one. She's very good. She's going to have to pitch twice a weekend for the rest of the season, I would imagine, unless Morgan Beckham or pretty much Morgan Beckham starts to, find more consistency with how she's pitching. She had a good outing today in relief, 4 innings, no earned runs. But it's Mackenzie Kraftsick will get game 1. Madison Wendell will probably get game 2, and then Mackenzie Kraftsick will get game 3. As of right now, that's how the rotation is going to be. So not only do you have to take care of Mac's arm anytime you can, but it's just going to revolve around them, how well they pitch. Otherwise, you're going to have to score 9 runs a game to be able to come away with wins. And I don't know if the offense is set up to do that right now.
Certainly not right now, so it seems. But I mean, it feels kind of cliche to say, but that's always going to be a little bit true, getting that consistency out of your pitching staff. I hate to harp on it too much, but I also am just like, every time I click on the schedule, I'm a little bit taken aback. Through 23 games, they have 13 wins.
I know.
2 years ago, through 44 games, they had 6 wins.
Yeah.
I mean, leaps and bounds that we're talking about this team and how well they can compete in the MAC as compared to, can they not finish last? Can they win double-digit games?
Yeah.
Already, a conference win.
Mm-hmm.
Against a pretty top-notch team.
Do you think, Ben, if they can get Kraft to go into, like, if she can pitch, like, the first game and third game, like, consistently, and then, you get Addie Martin and Hannah Hunt back, like, and their bats are going like they were and have been, do you think that Bowling Green is a team that, like, would you not be shocked if they're, like, I don't know, the top half of the tournament at the end of the year, like, they're, like, a 3 or 4 seed in the tournament? Or, like, do you think that is a reasonable goal for this team?
I think a reasonable goal is making out of the 6 teams, whether to be the top 3 teams, I don't think is, I mean, maybe within their reach. I don't think they have the depth of pitching. And last year they weren't affected too much by injury. Injury is always a concern. So that might affect things. I do think I'm putting so much pressure on the pitching staff, but there's nothing they can do about what they have. Getting Addie Martin and Hannah Hunt back are probably the biggest pieces of that, because if they can really put up runs and compensate for the fact that their pitchers might be giving up some on the higher end here and there, win some games like 9-8, 9-7, win those higher scoring games, I think that'll be big to compensate for the pitching staff. I could see this team making the MAC tournament. I haven't seen every team play and how good they are, so I couldn't make an accurate judgment right now, but I think your reasonable goal would be to be one of those top 6 teams. I think I could tell you 3 teams right now that aren't as good. So you're halfway done with the battle there. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, looking at some stats, obviously conference play is very young for the Mid-American Conference, and there's, different number of games played among teams, so it can be misleading at times. Bowling Green and Western Michigan only separated by 1 place in the batting average rankings at 2.6 mark for the Falcons, 2.72 for the Broncos. Pitching, meanwhile, Bowling Green, one of the better teams in that department, sitting at 4th right now, with Western Michigan out at 8th in that parameter. Fielding probably going to look a little bit worse based on this past weekend with some errors, but still, if Western Michigan near the bottom in fielding percentage at 11 out of 12, Bowling Green at 5th. So, based off of those numbers, again, different teams match up differently against each other. But I think to your point, a very reasonable expectation to take a game. You have to take a game, I think. But I think a very reasonable, expectation to take 2 and win.
At least take a game. It'd be great to take 2. I don't know if they'll be able to take 3, but we'll see. If Western Michigan came away with an upset win over Miami, if they can, go to Kalamazoo on the road and trounce Western Michigan, that'd be a good piece. Also, always the risk early in the year that you only play 2 out of the 3 games, and then maybe you have to make one up later on in the year, but they might only get 2 games in, which wouldn't be a complete surprise depending on how the weather goes this weekend and how finicky Western Michigan is with the cold and the wind and rain and stuff like that. Yeah. So,
is there any other stones left unturned that you want to touch on about this team? It feels like at this point in the year, it's always, we just need to see more conference play.
Yeah, 1 series in. What are you going to say? I think it is a good weekend because Central is going to be in the MAC tournament and probably one of the top 3 seeds, I would imagine. So I think it's a good bar set. And you very easily could have lost all 3, but you did come away with 1, and you very easily could have won the second one. So a lot of back and forth there could have been. 1 and 2 still isn't bad. You're still trying to improve you're not trying to go out and win a MAC tournament this year. You're just trying to improve every year. And I think so far they're set up relatively well to do that.
Definitely a strong upward trending trajectory that we've seen in Coach Gardner's tenure in this not quite midway point of her second year at the helm, but Bowling Green softball back to action this coming weekend, March 20th, Friday at 3 p.m. and Saturday a doubleheader beginning at 1 p.m. with the second one 30 minutes after the conclusion of that, barring any unforeseen weather conditions. As always, the Falcon Media Sports Network will have comprehensive coverage of that action from Kalamazoo, including written recaps and much more on bgfalconmedia.com, and we should have a call for that as well. If you want to plug that, Mr. Kleinmeyer.
To reach my microphone. I'm in the series again.
Western Michigan this Friday and Saturday for the softball team.
Kalamazoo?
Kalamazoo?
You got no call for the holdout?
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, I'm talking about Willis.
Anyways,
As I'll review arenas.
you can check out previews, recaps, and much more on bgfalconmedia.com. Moving from softball to baseball, a team that, you look at these teams next to each other 2 years ago, and I know there's a lot of baseball had to be played, and there's a lot of softball had to be played, but this is not where I would predict them at this point in the season if you had asked me back then what was going to go down. So baseball, since the last show, they opened their conference play against Kent. We talked about that series. 9-5 win against Dayton in Dayton, a solid win there. But what I want to focus on more, Tyler, and I'll let you really dig into it, weekend in Oxford against the Redhawks. You lose 8-5 on Friday. You win 10-0 in 7 innings on Saturday, and then you lose 13-7 earlier today. High scoring run totals for the winners in all 3 of those, but break down the weekend for me.
Yeah, I kind of just was high-scoring games. It was whichever team's offense was going to have a better day was going to win those games. A lot of home runs hit between the two teams, especially this last game. I mean, 13-7. You really had just explosive late innings for Miami. 3 in the 6th, 1 in the 7th, 4 in the 8th was the difference right there. BG, hung with them for a lot of this series. I think the 10-0 win is going to be the hallmark of it, obviously. That is a fantastic win against this very good Miami team. Big shutout for the Falcons, and they did it kind of with a pitching staff that you wouldn't expect to be pitching that day to get a shutout. Nate Kress gets the start, goes 5 innings, doesn't give up, or gives up 1 walk, strikes out 8 on 5 hits. Boudreaux comes in, 2 innings strong, a walk and 2 Ks, and then Titus Lotz has his probably the best performance of the season considering the opponent, 2 strikeouts in an inning. No start from Carson Sova. He comes out of the bullpen once again, so that's been an interesting development, as I don't know exactly what the plan with Sova is going to be moving forward, whether he stays this very long relief arm or whether he gets his way back into the rotation. Did not pitch well to start the year, so he's kind of been bumped out of that. But I think I don't think they're in a bad spot after the first 2 series. They went up against the 2 best teams in the conference and took a win against each. I didn't expect them to win either of those series. So all things considered, the fact that they avoided a sweep against both of Kent and Miami, who I think are really neck and neck in terms of who the best team is, along with you have Ball State and Toledo, I think are also going to have a case at being the top team in the conference by the end of the year. BG's solidly not one of those top 4 teams. And I think that is the difference right now in terms of feel around this program this year versus the past couple years, where, we're kind of used to seeing that 17-0 start, that 7-0 start. To see them sitting at 2-4 is, just a different sight than what we're kind of used to the past couple years with the program. But considering the opponent, I think the fact that they avoided a sweep and the fact that the offense has shown up against the good pitching staff of Miami, it was pretty much non-existent against Kent State. That is a good sign after that Kent State series where I think the offense was a very big question. I think it's still just now the pitching has to kind of find the same level.
Yeah, I think you'd almost rather it go the way that it did, take a game both weekends than win one and get swept in the other. I mean, I think it's hard to
expect them to win either of those at the beginning of conference play with the roster that they have right now, still trying to figure things out, versus those 2 teams that are so veteran and just really stacked rosters, I think was a little unrealistic if you were looking at it that way. So I think getting a shutout is big for momentum reasons, and then still being competitive in that final game, leading Miami for about half of it, and going into a series against Ohio, a team that just is not good this year. I'm not too worried about the position they are right now, but looking at the conference tournament, which is a far ways away at this point, BG, you're not one of the top 4 teams, so they're going to have to fight for one of those final 2 spots. So I think this Ohio series coming up is going to be the most important 3-game stretch of the season so far.
And it's, obviously a young season, so it almost feels like every week is the new most important just because you're learning so much more about the team. But, I mean, based on what you know of this roster, obviously not as seasoned as others, some real key losses in the offseason that we've, hammered over and over at this point. Do you think they have the potential to flourish into a team that could vie for one of those top 4 spots? Or, I mean, is it really, 5, 6 or bust in your opinion?
I think they have. I don't think they have potential to be one of the top 4. I'm going to be honest. I don't think they have the roster that those do. Not saying they couldn't win if you get into into the tournament.
I mean, you could have it in that tournament setting, yeah.
I don't see them finishing top 4. I believe they were 5th in the preseason poll, and that's right where I would have put them. I would have put them solidly the best team in the conference behind those first 4. So I think the roster has a chance to, really turn into a very good team. I think Vinny Salvione's been the bright spot of the season so far offensively. A guy that you weren't, and you didn't really know what you were going to get out of him. He's reminded me a little bit like Landon Roque a couple years ago, and Gunnar Antholon last year, in terms of guys that kind of came out of nowhere in a way where they transfer in, they have a glove, you don't know what their bat's going to be. Salvione took a year off baseball last year. He didn't play collegiate baseball. It was a gap year, and he has picked up kind of right where he left off, or right where he would have liked to leave off. He didn't get many at-bats in his 2 seasons at Portland. He's hitting .290 in 16 games. He has 5 doubles, a triple, 4 homers, 16 RBIs. He's slugging just under 1,600. Does not draw walks. That's the one knock on him right now. But he's shown power. He's been one of the bigger power bats for the team. I think that you still have questions on a few different spots of the roster, notably exactly the rotation in the outfield. Can anyone solidify those spots? Nobody's really been able to do it yet, except Zach Corky, who I think really had it solidified coming into the season. Nita's been okay at third. Seidel has been Sam Seidel. He's been terrific. TJ Tackett is starting to get back into the rhythm. It's going to take him a little longer to get a solid rhythm at the plate coming back from the injury that he's coming back from. And I think right now you're starting to see another guy step up in Andrew Di Lodovico. He hit his first home run of the season today, and I think he's really started to solidify that spot behind the plate as a freshman. So I think that's really good to see. It's just going to be a question of which of these guys can really step up and solidify those spots in the outfield. Roster-wise, I think is what you're looking at. And then you're looking at bullpen arms, of which bullpen arms are going to emerge as the most reliable. Nate Kress right now is pitching his way into a starting spot for the rest of the year, which would mean that you're going to be down one of your best bullpen arms. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Those are just questions you're going to have to look to see if you get answers the next couple of series.
I feel kind of bad, actually, because I knew we were talking about this off air, but Miami can't the top 2 teams obviously picked in the preseason poll. I didn't know Ohio was second to last on UMass, and that's a 23-point gap. So I think what you said is pretty spot on with if you don't take 2 of the 3 or even sweep the Bobcats this weekend, then you might have a more concerns moving forward, but also knowing that what this weekend is, especially on Saturday with the field dedication as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that the team's going to play for that.
Mm-hmm.
The team's going to feel something special playing that first conference series on that. And they're going to want to win, because the one thing that has stood out to me most talking to head coach Kyle Hallock in the times I've talked to him about the field is that it brings more pressure onto the program to win. Because now they have the university support. Now they have the donor support. There's a lot of money that's been invested into this program now to the tune of over $3 million. That comes with winning expectations. So I think they're going to feel that and really want to make a statement against Ohio. So that'll be an interesting one.
Mind you, this is against... Sorry, Lucas, go ahead.
No, you're all good. I was basically that they're coming home finally. I know they have Henley on the schedule, which we'll see if they play or move it. There's no way they're regardless, let's just say they don't play Finley or they play regardless. You're still your first conference home series you have at Stellar Field since the new turf and the lights and everything and all the support, all of the years that this has come to. It's a massive series for them. And you're just still in the early parts of the season, but for all what you said, Tyler, and everything, just all the expectations, all the money, all support, just everything from you go trace it back to 2024, it comes down to a lot of this series, and especially on Saturday when I recognize the field and everything, but like a lot of it is this weekend, which is going to make it even bigger.
Yeah, it's one of those series just looking at the schedule. I mean, we can play a little game here for a second. You just look at it. Outside of Ohio, you have NIU. You should probably... I don't know. That's a toss-up one right now of how that's going to go. They've performed fairly well. Akron's performed fairly well. Central Michigan's performed fairly well. UMass, you should sweep. Toledo, you're probably not winning that one right now. Eastern, they've performed fairly well. Western, they've performed fairly well. Ball State, you're not winning that. This Ohio series right here, bless you. This Ohio series right here, along with UMass, are really the only two that I think you can have the potential to chalk up for a sweep. So I think that the team needs to capitalize on that and sweep Ohio. And if you can do that, you're setting yourself up in a solid position.
And I'm going to dumb it down a little bit because with respect to the Ohio Bobcats, they've allowed double-digit runs in 9 games. They're 1-5 in conference play. The least runs they've allowed to a team in conference play is 6 in a 6-3 loss against Western Michigan. Other scores: 16-7 loss, 20-12 loss, 13-1 loss, 8-2 loss. The single win for them in conference play, they had a 14-7 win over Northern Illinois. You cannot, this team that's...
It's a depleted Ohio roster. It's a roster right now that's in a rebuild year, where all of the talent they have has gone out, and they got hit by the transfer portal, and they just haven't been able to, build it back up this year. So it's one of those that you really need to just capitalize on, and they need a sweep.
I mean, I think there's really no excuse not to. I mean, they're giving away runs like nobody's been.
You keep the hey, this Boreal win keeps up this past weekend, that ball's gonna fly outside of if you touch it. So hopefully it keeps up.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah,
I think honestly it'd be better if it doesn't keep up for them, because I think the win gives Ohio a shot in that series. I think if you have no win, you are the better offense.
I think the less variables, the better. I'm with you.
And that's also just the interesting part of Stellar Field. It depends on which way the wind's blowing. If the wind's blowing in from the tennis courts in right field, it's not going to be a home run hit. So, yeah, the variables are always very interesting at Stellar.
This week, a lot of action at home for Bowling Green baseball. First on Tuesday, March 17th at 3 p.m., which probably won't end up getting played due to weather.
Possibly a Wednesday movement there.
On this usual, on our radar, a home matchup against the University of Findlay. The Oilers come to town, but the big marquee ticket for the week series against Ohio on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the schedule right now. 3 p.m. Friday, 1 p.m. on both Saturday and Sunday at Stellar Field. As always, bgfalconmedia.com will have recaps, previews, and much more regarding that. And Tyler, as well, whatever you were about to say.
Field dedication on Saturday. That's the game. If you're looking for one to come out to the ballpark, that's the one to come out to. Gonna have all the festivities for that one, but we're gonna have a call of all 4 of those games, depending on the Findlay line gets played and when it gets played. We're gonna have calls of every game that gets played at Stellar Field there on Falcon Radio.
Yeah, Tyler Kaplowitz was on Olin Friday. Saturday, Tyler Kaplowitz, Noah Seeley. And then Sunday, I do believe it is Noah Seeley. And I'm blanking on who I had for the other one. Sam Bork. Definitely a lot to be excited about there. A big-time chance for the Falcons to build some momentum, get some runs on the board, and make that field dedication all the sweeter.
I'm also going to have a little story on the field coming out somewhat soon, so pay attention to bgfalconmedia.com for that.
A lot to be excited about. Definitely stay tuned for that. That wraps up the main 4 sports that are still in play. Ben, I do want to touch base with you. We're going to keep it a little brief because we're pushing towards the end of the show here, but I want you to pick, the most interesting hockey-related news to you. Do you think, if it's the CCHA, if it's Bowling Green players potentially departing / signing contracts? I want you to pick here. What do you think is the hot story right now that season's over?
Yeah, there's a correct answer for this one. There is. I'm going to start with the lesser news that yesterday Michigan Tech, who beat Bowling Green in the quarterfinal round, got spanked by Minnesota State. They lost 7-2, and their goalie, who stood on his head against Bowling Green 2 weeks ago, actually, I think he only made 5 saves on 12 shots against him. I don't.
They were full for 5 at one point.
It was a horrific performance, not only from him but from the team, and their head coach didn't know what to say, between periods or even after the game. So, yeah, it was one of those where you scratch your head and you're like, I have no idea what happened. And you also look at that, Bowling Green would have definitely competed much better than that, but season's over. There's nothing you can do about it now. The other big news. Jackson Niedermeyer, one of the Falcon defensemen, side of the Tulsa Oilers, and then the biggest one, Gustav Stjernberg, foregoes his 4th and final season of college hockey to go play AHL for the Colorado Eagles, the AHL team of the Colorado Avalanche. A pretty big, for his career, that's an amazing signing. He's got a 2-year contract coming. After the end of this year, he's going to finish out the AHL season. And then after that, he'll be signed 2 years for Colorado, playing between the East Coast and the AHL. That's big for him, certainly. So definitely good for him. A testament to how much potential he has, but also unfortunate for the Falcons that they're losing, in my mind, their best defenseman. And if he's not the best, he's the second best defenseman going into next year. That's a guy that was probably going to wear the C for you. He wore the A this year for BG. Was, when he was on the ice, the best defenseman you had one of the better offensive upsides, led the team in goal scoring by a defenseman. He the last 2 years, actually the last 3 years, he led the team in time on ice per game, was one of the top 2. So, I mean, that's just a huge loss for this team. They have defenseman recruits coming in, likely right off the bat are not going to be the same as him. So that's the biggest one to know. Gustav Stjernberg is going to be gone, at least as of right now. I don't think he can come back. He's got a pro contract, so I don't know why he would.
Definitely a tough one to swallow for the Falcons. I think, you can joke and appreciate the some of the antics and getting into the record books in ways that you may not hope to see your players. But I mean, down the stretch and certainly come playoff time too. I think his contributions and impact were unquestionable.
The last 4 games, all against Michigan Tech, were the best 4 games I saw Gustav Stjernberg play in orange and brown.
About as good as games as we had from anybody in those, or as the Falcons had those last 4. I mean,
best defenseman play that I've seen were he and Jackson Niedermeyer, both of them gone. The best 4-game stretch, I think, of the season between 2 defensemen was Stjernberg and Niedermeyer, the last 4 games of the year.
And even like on top of that, you're losing Norris
and Dalton Norris, on defense. So,
definitely a lot of rebuilding for this Falcons team. It'll be a hope. The biggest challenge I think yet for Coach Willie. Obviously you win a series last year, you don't win one this year, but you competed similarly in what's just a tough conference. As the matchups have panned out for you. But yeah, definitely a lot of rebuilding, more question marks on the actual roster side going into this offseason, but that makes it exciting, and I don't think there's any doubts in the ability to recruit. So it'll be interesting to see how they retool. And as always, I'm sure Ben, as well as many of our other members of the Falcon Media Sports Network, will be keeping the news current and updated as things change with that Falcon hockey team. So always stay tuned to bgfalconmedia.com for that. But with that wrapping up kind of the last of the real sports discussions we have for today of like recent action and news, the last question I have teed up for you guys. Obviously, this Tuesday is St. Patrick's Day. This weekend was fake patties for the young people in Bowling Green going out and having a good time. And, the phrase they always throw around is the luck of the Irish. So I want you to think of who is, you can think professional sports, college sports, etc. Who is the luckiest athlete that you can think of? You can ruminate on it for a minute.
Passing question. Gosh.
You can think it over for a minute. It's going to be tough. Maybe it's a guy that you're like, oh man, I hate seeing his smug face. He always wins, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure plenty of people would cite a Tom Brady of sorts. I would argue maybe that's not lucky so much as just successful in spite. But Tyler, you look pretty ready to...
Michael Jordan got saved by Scottie Pippen. Guys, guess where Tyler's from. Can anyone guess?
Michael Jordan is not the pull I was expecting off it.
Luckiest player? I mean, there's a whole...
before Scotty got swept by the Pistons, lost to him 3 years in a row.
We're not doing this. Ben Cork is sitting at the other side of the table. We're not doing this.
It's okay then.
You can't argue with stupidity.
My area would be Bill Walton. There's a whole documentary, Luckiest Man in the World.
Elaborate a little bit. I haven't seen it.
I've only seen bits and pieces of the documentary, but it's like a 3-4 documentary. Bill Walton, NBA basketball.
It was one of the ESPN 30 for 30s, right? Yeah, I remember when they were, yeah.
I mean, he just pretty much right place, right time his whole life.
Yeah.
I think I don't know. There was something about a rabbit's foot, I think, that was mentioned in the documentary. But yeah, just got really lucky, not just in his NBA career with the teams he ended up on, but also in his outside life beyond that. So yeah.
Can I say an organization or a team, or does it have to be an athlete?
Oh, you can if you like it.
The Pittsburgh Steelers. That's it.
This is where you just that virus, bro.
I have never. I can't. Okay, I swear. If you want me to pull one example, I can't do it. It's every game. Every game I ask you like catch that might have not been a catch, but might have.
The Immaculate Reception, you mean?
So wait, that's the Joel James catch?
The Immaculate Reception that
James catch? Oh, what are you talking about? But for the reception, that definitely wasn't a reception.
I didn't know what you were talking about.
Jesse, you don't know what the Immaculate Reception is that I butchered the name of? My apologies.
Oh, that's what you're talking.
He told the Immaculate Catch.
Yeah, my apologies. Okay, my tournament, give me a break. I feel yeah, pride.
No, I just Steelers. I have hatred for them.
I hear a lot of. I hear Michael Jordan. I hear the Steelers, Bill Walton. Oddly enough, Nick Ben. And I hope Nick
It's listening.
I'm struggling to think of anybody. My mind, like Nick's, went to a couple other guys that got put on the Yankees. Pretty much anybody that gets
Jeter,
roughed about it.
Like respectively, they're both.
And postseason hitters of all time. And A-Rod was also a great player, and he got to the Yankees because he was a great player, and they were willing to pay him. So I don't know that counts. Jeter, I guess. I mean, he's a great player that got drafted to, the most historic franchise in baseball history. I mean, do I think he's overrated? Yes. So I would put him maybe in that Luckey category that I think if he was a Detroit Tiger, he would not even be near one of the best shortstops of all time. He wouldn't even be the best shortstop in Tigers history, in my opinion. So I guess I would say Derek Jeter, but that's a tough one. I know there's somebody for NHL, I couldn't find him, or the MLB that has like a bunch of rings that is like some no-name player. He just like ended up getting signed by teams that ended up winning that year. It was like a guy that averaged like a couple of minutes a game or something like that, or I forget who it was, but I couldn't find him. So, Nick,
I think you could go Chapman, or was Chapman?
Roll this Chapman.
Yeah, I think you go with him only in the fact that like you put him on the Reds when he first came up. I guess at the time the Reds had like with Brandon Phillips, Joey Votto, Zach Cozart. You had all those guys like they were above average players, and they were on the Reds. The Reds never and probably will never ever again actually ever be good. But I mean, like bringing him in here, like just like the fact that he was like one of the first big names that could throw 100 plus, and that he bounces around almost every year to a new team, and constantly is just the guy that I don't know. He's just flamethrowers, like throws the ball really hard, and I don't think outside of that he really does anything other than a couple years ago, I guess he brought in a slider that was kind of working well, but like even after that, and as everyone started throwing the ball harder, people quickly figured out that you just kind of wait, you time it up, and you smash it over the wall. Like you put the bat and you put the ball in play, things are gonna happen. Like he quickly became like not as unstoppable as he was pictured. But
I got another baseball one if I can get a second entry.
I'm gonna change my answer.
Gaylord Perry cheated his entire career, never got caught, made the Hall of Fame, that admitted he cheated after he got in the Hall of Fame, and they can't take him out. Made a whole book about it.
Now, is that lucky or is that just like good strategic lying? I'm not saying it's just rough.
I mean, I think it is. I mean, are you trying? He had saliva all over the ball his entire career and never got caught.
He just sneezed. Just sneezed
for
a lot.
15 years.
Yeah, I don't think hierarchy is luck in the same way that like getting drafted by a very good team.
Just because they don't get drafted to a bad organization doesn't mean they're lucky.
Here's my answers.
But it's just like right place, right time.
It actually does mean that.
Just because they're one of the best postseason hitters of all time, that's not luck.
I'm changing my answer.
Okay,
but it is lucky that I got it.
So here you go, and then I'm going to answer because we got to wrap.
I flipped my answer to Darko Milicic because he earned $46 million in his career to score under 3,000 points total in NBA history. And also the Pistons would have won probably 4 championships had they drafted anybody, mainly Carmelo Anthony or Dwayne Wade. They probably
what about Anthony Rendon? He's got to be in there.
Maybe, I guess.
Exactly.
I would have.
Yeah.
He got signed a huge. Made a lot of money, but he at least earned the money that he's getting paid. Darko, I mean, I guess he earned to be drafted number whatever it was 2, but Pistons missed out on a bunch of championships because of that. So Darko Milicic.
I'm going to put this in kind of the same place Ben is thinking. Like the financial side is something that you just overlook and take for granted very easily.
Yeah.
Many, many moons ago, the New England Patriots were without their legendary starting quarterback for the first 4 games of the year.
Right.
And who made millions of dollars and like a decent career off of filling in well on a stacked team? It's like Jimmy Garoppolo. I think Jimmy Garoppolo was one of the lucky.
Oh, I thought you were going, oh, great.
No,
I think he got starting job based off an injury, too.
right, but he also went and won.
Well, I mean, the same thing just happened.
Teams that Jimmy Garoppolo couldn't win anything on. He won a couple games with the Patriots, got to deal with the Niners. They were kind of hot and on an already trending upward team to end the season. Made a Super Bowl run, have been back because their coach is solid and their rosters are always solid. But, I mean, couldn't get done there, and he was a large part of the reason why I think he's up there. I mean, if Tom Brady doesn't get injured, do we ever see him start a game for a team? Or doesn't get suspended, I mean.
Yeah.
Probably not. That's my money because Jimmy Garoppolo is a wealthy, wealthy man.
I mean, the same thing just happened. Willis just got signed for a huge deal off of the basis of, 5 games?
On the basis of that he was a backup quarterback. On the basis of that, that would have to show that he was bad.
Well, that being said, we can speculate about how similar we think Malik Willis and Jimmy Garoppolo's career arcs are, but that's another conversation for another day, probably in the Convergence Lab. So, also on a different show, good call, Lucas. With that, that's going to do it for this week's Zig Zone. As always, for all BG Falcon Media or Falcon Media Sports Network content, you can check out bgfalconmedia.com and tune into Falcon Radio and WBGU 88.1 FM for our live broadcasts of sports, as well as this show as well. That's going to do it for us here today from the Zig Zone. For Tyler Kavlitz, Lucas Kleinmeyer, Andrew Smith, Nick Winholz, and Ben Korak, I'm Holden Ruck, all of us from the Falcon Media Sports Network, saying have a good night.